Twitter is an American microblogging and social networking service on which users post and interact with messages known as tweets. Registered users can post, like, and retweet tweets, but unregistered users can only read them. Users access Twitter through its website interface or its mobile device application software, though the service could also be accessed via SMS before April 2020. Twitter, Inc. is based in San Francisco, California, and has more than 25 offices around the world. Tweets were originally restricted to 140 characters, but was doubled to 280 for non-CJK languages in November 2017. Audio and video tweets remain limited to 140 seconds for most accounts. Twitter was created by Jack Dorsey, Noah Glass, Biz Stone, and Evan Williams in March 2006 and launched in July of that year. By 2012, more than 100 million users posted 340 million tweets a day, and the service handled an average of 1.6 billion search queries per day. In 2013, it was one of the 10 most visited websites and has been described as the SMS of the Internet. As of Q1 2019, Twitter had more than 330 million monthly active users. Twitter is a sum to many microblogging service, given that the vast majority of tweets are written by a small minority of users. Twitter's origins lie in a day-long brainstorming session held by board members of the podcasting company Audio. Jack Dorsey, then an undergraduate student at New York University, introduced the idea of an individual using an SMS service to communicate with a small group. The original project code name for the service was TWTTR, an idea that Williams later ascribed to Noah Glass, inspired by Flickr and the 5-character length of American SMS shortcodes. The decision was also partly due to the fact that the domain twitter.com was already in use, and it was 6 months after the launch of TWTTR that the crew purchased the domain and changed the name of the service to Twitter. The developers initially considered 10,958 as a shortcode, but later changed it to 40,404 for ease of use and memorability. Work on the project started on March 21, 2006, when Dorsey published the first Twitter message at 9:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Just setting up my TWTTR. Dorsey has explained the origin of the Twitter title. We came across the word Twitter, and it was just perfect. The definition was a short burst of inconsequential information and chirps from birds. And that's exactly what the product was. The first Twitter prototype, developed by Dorsey and contractor Florian Weber, was used as an internal service for Audio employees. The full version was introduced publicly on July 15, 2006. In October 2006, Biz Stone, Evan Williams, Dorsey, and other members of Audio formed Obvious Corporation and acquired Audio, together with its assets, including Audio.com and Twitter.com. From the investors and shareholders, Williams fired Glass, who was silent about his part in Twitter's startup until 2011. Twitter spun off into its own company in April 2007. Williams provided insight into the ambiguity that defined this early period in a 2013 interview. With Twitter, it wasn't clear what it was. They called it a social network. They called it microblogging. But it was hard to define, because it didn't replace anything. There was this path of discovery with something like that, where over time you figure out what it is. Twitter actually changed from what we thought it was in the beginning, which we described as status updates and a social utility. It is that, in part, but the insight we eventually came to was Twitter was really more of an information network than it is a social network. The tipping point for Twitter's popularity was the 2007 South by Southwest Interactive Conference. During the event, Twitter usage increased from 20,000 tweets per day to 60,000. Quote, the Twitter people cleverly placed two 60-inch plasma screens in the conference hallways, exclusively streaming Twitter messages, remarked Newsweek's Stephen Levy. Hundreds of conference goers kept tabs on each other via constant Twitters. Panelists and speakers mentioned the service, and the bloggers in attendance touted it. Reaction at the conference was highly positive. Blogger Scott Beale said that Twitter was absolutely ruling SXSY. Social software researcher Dana Boyd said Twitter was owning the conference. Twitter staff received the festival's Web Award prize with the remark, "We'd like to thank you in 140 characters or less. And we just did." The company experienced rapid initial growth. It had 400,000 tweets posted per quarter in 2007. This grew to 100 million tweets posted per quarter in 2008. In February 2010, Twitter users were sending 50 million tweets per day. By March 2010, the company recorded over 70,000 registered applications. As of June 2010, about 65 million tweets were posted each day, equaling about 750 tweets sent each second. According to Twitter, as of March 2011, that was about 140 million TW.